Welcome back, everybody. Tuesday, September 25th, to another episode. Actually, this is a preview episode, of course, for the Only on Patreon show featuring everybody's favorite journalist, formerly known as Thomas Paine, Michael Moore. Hello, Michael.
Hey, Jason, what's up?
Not too much. It's been a hell of a day, a hell of a week. We've got tons of stuff going on with Kavanaugh. We've got our Crowdsource community digging into the texts, the emails, everything that we were talking about last week on that episode of More Paine with Larry Klayman, of course. We revealed all of those FOIA documents from the special counsel's office. Michael, it was a little strange because during the week after doing this great episode with Larry Klayman, we saw, what was his name there? Simonson from Daily Caller somehow claiming the FOIA documents were exclusive to him. What did you think about that?
Where did he get them from?
I mean, could have only gotten them from Larry's lawsuit, and Larry contacted me. Of course, I contacted you to bring in True Pundit, and this was a Crowdsource the Truth and True Pundit exclusive, but that's fine. We can let him say that. People, of course, can enjoy the exclusive content that we're creating together by going to patreon.com/truepundit or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. That's the only way that people can watch More Paine, which is going to be coming up in just 28 minutes only on Patreon. So definitely want to encourage people to log on and subscribe. If you are not currently sponsoring True Pundit, if you're watching the shows on patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth, I hope that people will also log on and sponsor True Pundit. And it's a great resource for all kinds of news above and beyond what we're sharing here on More Paine. But this is a really unique show, Michael, and I want to thank you for joining me and helping me create this. What are we going to be talking about later today at 8 p.m. on Patreon?
We're going to cut my book loose. We're going to kick it off and do some available for pre-ordering after tonight, and exciting in its own right to try to finally come in a step closer to get this thing out to everybody. So that's going to be kind of cool, and we'll talk a little bit about the book. We'll talk about some of the current events that are going on today. There's a lot of crazy stuff going on in the news today. Yeah. So we'll get into that as well. But there's just a lot of stuff going on. It's just nonstop. It just always flies at every day. It just flies at you. It's I don't know how people balance it all, because I know we find it hard to balance. So I don't know how other people balance it all, or maybe some people just don't balance. They just have thrown in the towel, and they're like, they don't really care about a lot of stuff that goes on.
Well, you're speaking about something important, right? People burn out, and this is part of what some people are trying to do, to overwhelm the average American so that you just throw their hands up in the air and they say, well, I don't know what to believe, I don't know who to believe, I don't know what's true or not, and they're just so overwhelmed with information. This is part of the purpose of disinformation, isn't it? Overwhelm the recipient.
There's just so much going on. I think people are becoming more selective on who they're listening to and who they're reading. This week is a perfect example of this, with what's going on with Kavanaugh. There's so much insanity.
Yeah.
Certain sources say something and that have been respected for a long time, and it just turns out that they're just full of crap. So it's like propaganda. It's nothing more than propaganda to try to further their ideology, and so you have to be careful. And I think a lot of people are being more selective on who they read and who they watch.
Yeah.
And just because you almost have to be and able to survive, you have to pick the people that you trust, and kind of, they're your news people, they're your news horses, and and just go with them. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. The way things have deteriorated with this Kavanaugh situation. We can talk about that as well. There's just, it's crazy. It's literally crazy, and it makes me wonder when you see things rise to a level like this. I mean, I have like all these things in front of me that you can't see, all these different news services we belong to and proprietary things of headlines all day long, nonstop. It makes me think that something bad is around the corner. You know, when you see this fever pitch, things rise to a fever pitch. And what I mean by bad is, well, what's going to happen next with a lot of these things? You know, it's like a new low every day. So where does it go from here?
Yeah.
And it's reason for concern. It really is.
When you say it's a new low,
any of that makes sense?
It does, actually. I suspect you're talking about previously respected sources like Ronan Farrow. Here's a guy who, I think he was first out with the Bill Cosby story, certainly the Harvey Weinstein story. He's kind of made a cottage industry of exposing abusers, and that's a good thing. That's what we want journalists to be doing. But then when we see this sort of unfounded situation that, you know, all these accusations coming against Kavanaugh, you would think, and again, I know, I've spoken personally to many women who have had many valid reasons as to why they haven't come forward with their stories. But once a woman has come forward, as Dr. Ford did, I don't understand the reluctance to now have her day where justice can be done. They have all these you know, terms they're trying to put. This is Congress. You can't dictate terms to Congress. When they tell you to come and testify, you do it.
Yeah, well, I mean, she has dictated terms to Congress. That's the if you.
It's the weird part.
It's very strange, though. It makes you think that, okay, with Grassley, what's this guy's story? I mean, I hear strange things about him on a regular basis from government whistleblowers.
Chuck Grassley?
So yeah, that he doesn't come through on promises that he's made to whistleblowers and things along those lines. So what is going on? Like, why would this guy allow her to, and her attorneys to push this and push this and push this? And meanwhile, Kavanaugh vote has been delayed. Maybe they say, the Senate says maybe they'll do it this weekend. If nobody comes through surfaces at the last minute tomorrow, and who, I don't even think it's definitive whether she's going to testify. So
right, they haven't come to that conclusion.
It's a hoax. You know, if she doesn't testify, it's just a big hoax, and he was part of it for allowing himself to get played on behalf of the American people. So it's a very crazy week, and you have to take a step back and say, this country's in a bad place.
Yeah.
Well, no matter if you're on the left or you're on the right, this is not good. This is not good, especially for enemies who are able to look in from the outside and say, hey, this could be a good time to strike this country. They're divided. They don't know what the hell's going on. They're all fighting each other, and you know, from a security standpoint, you have to be concerned about things like that.
Michael, I'm looking at some of the headlines on TruePundit.com, and you guys had a story here about the creepy porn lawyer. He's gone into hiding. You bring up hoaxes, and apparently someone on 4chan sent this guy some information. I think the lesson to be learned here is that 4chan is basically the home of hoaxes. I don't understand why people would trust this anonymous information that appears on an anonymous website. Although it certainly is possible that something credible could come to that source, in my experience, it's the go-to place for hoaxsters, for liars, for people who want to spread disinformation and do harm. And I think it's also super interesting to note that this lawyer who is representing Dr. Ford for free is Andrew McCabe's lawyer. He was formerly the Department of Justice. He was one of the inspector generals. So my question is this a guy who's kind of on the cleanup crew trying to defend his boy McCabe and get this PhD, the woman who's accused Kavanaugh, in his camp so they can shut down the Supreme Court that might turn pro-Trump if Kavanaugh gets confirmed? And is this guy really working for free? We see all these GoFundMe campaigns cropping up out of nowhere that get funded through these mysterious anonymous donors and sock puppet accounts. This is all the type of stuff we're going to be talking about on More Paine in just 20 minutes. So people who are not yet sponsors of Crowdsource the Truth on Patreon should go to patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth or patreon.com/truepundit. You can sponsor both. You can sponsor one or the other, and you're going to enjoy these exclusive live streams of More Paine, Tuesdays at 8 p.m., only on Patreon. So, Michael, we're going to get into all these topics and more.
Yeah, we'll get into some stuff.
It's going to be a big deal. We just have 4 minutes left here in our preview stream. Anything else you want to cover before we reset and get ready for Patreon?
No, we'll tackle that stuff, and you never know what's going to pop up here. I keep my eyes. If you see me looking around, it's not that I'm disinterested in what what you're saying or anybody else. Last week, people said, "Why did you keep looking away like you weren't interested?" It's like that's what I do all day. I keep an eye on everything. I got all different feeds coming in here, so you never know what's going to happen. And so we'll talk about those things, and we'll get a little bit more into kicking off the book. Telling people how they can get it, what it's called, what the cover looks like. I'm happy about that to get this thing off the ground and get it moving.
Yeah, that book will be available soon, and people will be able to pre-order it and read the explosive book. The cat is almost out of the bag. I've created a little graphic to display that. It's interesting what you're saying about looking around. You know, there's a lot of people who like to speculate about, you know, whatever I might be looking at. I'm running a show here. We've got web pages. We've got you on Skype. We've got graphics. We've got messages. I have a couple of monitors here that I'm looking at where sometimes I'm even looking at you, and people don't realize that because here, for you, it looks like I'm looking away from you. For the audience, it looks more like I'm looking at you. So it's interesting the things that people on the internet like to speculate about and think they know, but very often they have the wrong idea. So people have to be really critical of all of these things. You know, someone sent me a photograph, Michael, of a teenaged girl passed out on a table, and this is allegedly, is that real, you think? They say it's come from a classmate.
I don't know. I mean, how could you tell? I mean,
it looks like her. The nose does match the released photograph. I mean, the thing that's so disturbing about this entire event is that, setting aside a matter of is it true or not, we're talking about an allegation against a minor. So if this was a charge that was brought against him when he was 17, wouldn't it be expunged from his record once he became an adult?
You're talking about Kavanaugh?
Yeah.
He wasn't charged with anything.
That's what I'm saying. But even if he were, the actions, the alleged actions, took place while he was 17. Do people now have to answer for things that they do? How far back will we go? Did he break a plate and lie to his grandmother when he was 6?
I was a menace until I was like 22. Complete maniac. Okay? If I ran for office, it would be like a Hollywood movie, the stuff that would come out about me. I mean, it's crazy. I mean,
hockey videos alone.
I made a comment that if my fraternity and fraternity members went on a road trip to Yale, we would still be locked up. I mean, this is what some ladies complaining about certain things. I'm like, wait a minute. I mean, when we were young, we were crazy. And
we certainly don't mean to condone that type of behavior, but I think there does need to be a line drawn.
But what I'm saying is, I don't ever want to be judged on what I was as a teenager. I was, you know, I grew up, I didn't have a lot of guidance, and it took me a while to get my bearings under me and settle down. So it wasn't a great time in my life. So there was a lot of hanging out with the guys when I was in the fraternity. There was a lot of parties, and some of the parties got a little wild. And I'm not saying like it was people were assaulted or anything. We were just wild.
Yeah.
And I look back on it, and I have good memories and I have bad memories, but that has nothing to do with who I am today. It's apples and oranges. I don't want to be judged. I think it's crazy to go back that far and on something like this, especially when you have a bunch of people in the Senate who are basically alcoholics
Right.
and criminals.
Exactly.
Judging a guy like Kavanaugh, the whole thing is preposterous.
I agree with that.
It's a jury of maniacs.
Yeah. Now, Michael, I don't mean to cut you off, but let's get ready for our Patreon stream. Right now, I'm just showing everyone the True Pundit Patreon page, and people can sponsor True Pundit by going to patreon.com/TruePundit. The yearbook has been posted, and it's an unedited PDF, so people can peruse the high school yearbook of Brett Kavanaugh and Christine Blasey Ford. And we're going to be back in just 15 minutes, only on Patreon. So people should be going to patreon.com/TruePundit or patreon.com/Crowdsource the Truth. We'll be back in just 15 minutes with a new episode of More Paine, only on Patreon.